This is eBook Showtime, connecting readers with authors by promoting ebooks and the personalities that write the words. Today's guest author was born and raised in Bird-upon-Trent. In 1980, her husband landed a job in Zambia, so off they went with their 3 young children, braving the move to live in a hot country with its different climate and culture. Although the Africa contract was for only 2 years, they stayed for over 30. And they've recently swapped one hot country for another and have settled in Spain. Describing herself and her family as not normal, it was her avid letter writing that spurred her to write her first book of humorous stories about their time abroad. Into Africa, 3 kids, 13 crates and a husband, was published in 2014, followed 2 years later with its first sequel, More Into Africa. So let's go and meet Ann Patras. What would you tell me about your books for an elevator pitch?
For a second, okay. All right, well, what I would say is that this book is actually, it is about when my husband and I and our 3 young kids went to live in Zambia in 1980. We didn't have a clue what we were going to, what we were letting ourselves in for, which is probably as well, because if we had, there's every chance we wouldn't have gone. It is not a serious memoir, this book, and it's definitely not a travelogue or an in-depth look at African culture. It's about us and what we did. When I look back at some old letters, I saw that the things we did were so weird. I couldn't believe some of it. We must have been bloody mad, not to mention, and very naive. We'd got so many weird and funny experiences, not to mention scary ones, that, I just had to share it in a book. You can't keep that sort of thing to yourself. Apparently, I've been told that the book is very well written, that it's an easy read, and it's very funny. And that's what I think.
So you mentioned that the books were, or the first book was inspired by letters that you'd written back to your family in the UK. I mean, from a practical point of view, I take it that you kept copies of your letters.
Yes. Everybody thought I was most weird, but I was writing to so many different people that if I didn't keep copies, I wouldn't remember what I'd said to whom. So I had to keep copies of them. And then apart from that, it was a habit for me to keep copies of letters. I used to work in a solicitor's office, and you didn't write anything to anybody without you kept a copy. So it was a sort of ingrained thing, yeah. And I tell you, I'm ever so glad I did.
Yeah, I bet you are. So who persuaded you to transfer, well, not transfer, but I mean to use the letters as inspiration for a book?
Everybody who read the letters. I mean, these letters travelled far and wide. My mum and dad received letters. Initially, they were called the General Information Bulletin number 1 and number 2 and number 3. And because I had to write them by hand, which was totally alien for me. And they used to photocopy them and then send them far and wide to friends and relatives all over England. So there was a lot of feedback coming back, and people were saying, well, how can you do that? And how can you do that? And how can you live like that? And yeah, this is unbelievable. And I said, but it's happening, Well, you've got to write a book about it because we think it's just too funny for words. And they kept nagging me. So write a book I did. Took a while.
And also, you serialised them.
Well, I did in the first place. But then later, when I was writing to all different people, once I got my typewriter, I was okay, because then I could write, holy, we've got a dog coming in. Excuse me? Marty, come here. Say hello. Oh no, she's going to shut the door first. Go on then, shut the door. Door. Good girl. Good girl. Okay, and this is Jodie. Come on. Come on. Oh, you can't see Jodie, she's a lot shorter. So, yeah. Normally pretty stupid, but she's good at shutting doors. That wasn't supposed to happen, by the way. Yeah.
Right. So, your books, you've described them as being not serious memoirs, but presumably there are some troughs as well as the peaks, you know.
Yeah, it's all fun and lightness. No, there's a few, yeah, there's a few dicey bits in it.
Right.
And
And
also tell people what, I do explain what life was like, like, I mean, there's one chapter just saying this is what we did in a day. This is like our day from the time we get up to the time we go to bed. So they've got an idea on what normal stuff is. Yeah. But, yeah.
well, fortunately for the readers, you didn't run out of funny stories, and you carried on in much the same vein with your second book, More Into Africa, 3 kids, some dogs, and a husband.
Yes.
So from what you've told me, I'm assuming you have lots more material to call upon. And I've heard that you also have another book in the pipeline. Is that right?
Yeah. Third one. Yeah, the second one wasn't. It's slightly different to the first one because for a start, it's not got so many quotes out of letters in it. Although when I say quotes out of letters, don't get the impression that it's boring because there's quotes in letters in the first one, because it's not. But the second one has got less, and it's also got more individual items as opposed to like following our life through the first year in that first book, whereas the second one there are various incidents that happened over the following 3 years in chronological order, but more contained, I think would be the word. So you can pick it up and put it down whenever you like. It's one of those sort of books you could leave by the side of the toilet. But except that when I've been talking to people, they've said that they read it that fast that they didn't have a chance to leave it by the side of the toilet. So, I don't know.
And that's a good thing.
I think it's a good one. Except they were all cheesed off that they got to the end so quick. That's been a big complaint, actually. It finished too soon.
Right.
I need to get on with some writing.
Between the first book and the second book, how did you feel that your writing had developed?
Oh, quite a lot. I can't explain exactly why. I think I was more aware of repetitive words. I was more aware of making sure that people understood where everything was coming from. I was more descriptive. I try not to waffle on a lot about the blue sky and the pretty flowers. That's not what the story's all about. And I was wearing a red dress, and and the children looked so sweet in their matching outfits. I don't sort of normally do that sort of thing. But you do need to explain to people basic things about the background and what things generally look like, especially if it's different to the UK, which was my chief audience at the time. But of course, I've also now extended over substantially to the States as well. So
now you also include drawings in your books, don't you? Your own drawings. So you've got you're giving a sort of a value-added approach, I like to call it, when you give something extra.
I wasn't too keen on that. You see, I wasn't supposed to do the drawings. Somebody else was. Except I couldn't find anybody who could read my mind. I knew exactly what I wanted them to look like, and nobody else could sort of pick it up. And I tried different people, and some were too what's the word, lifelike, and some were too overemphasized caricatures like you see in some of the newspapers, and nobody could just get it the way I wanted it. So my publisher said to me, well, what are these pictures like? And so I just sent her a rough sketch of a couple. And she said, did you do those? And I said, yes. And she said, well, just get on with it, woman, and do them yourself. and I did. And I tell you what, it was more bloody work than writing the book. It was a nightmare, because I'm not an artist.
well, perhaps you are.
Well, I won't say what sort of artist. But anyway.
and they look fantastic. Now, what would you say is the best thing about being a writer?
Um, it's difficult to say really. I I like people. I like to make people laugh if I can, because I think life should be fun. And I'm not the sort of person who can stand and or tell jokes or do stand-up comedy or anything rubbish like that, because it's just I haven't got the memory for it for a start. But if I can tell somebody about something that's funny, and they enjoy it, then that's fantastic. And the best way for me to do that is in writing, because I can write about things probably a lot better than I can talk about. And so the fact that our life is so has been so unusual, as far as certainly as far as where I came from, you know, it wasn't normal for people to go traipsing off across Africa in those days, and people thought we were a bit crazy. So they weren't wrong, and we do get the silliest things happening to us, and they deserve to be written about, and other people should see how fun life is. You know, if they can't have fun in their of their own right, then if I'm giving them a bit of a laugh by telling them the stupid things I've done, then that's what writing is about for me, and that's the pleasure I get out of it. So that's about all I can say. There's no hidden agendas, or I don't want to be a. Well, it'd be nice to be a number one bestseller. I am a number one bestseller. I forgot. Yeah, sorry, in a small way, but yeah, it's just a fun thing to that I hope people enjoy, basically.
Very good. This is a matter of interest. Have you ever written anything that you've had to delete? Or that you've thought you should delete?
Yes, yes, I did. It was for the first book, and it was an incident that happened to a friend of mine. I was there, obviously, and and I thought it was absolutely hilarious. And I thought, oh, I've just got to talk about this. And it wasn't somebody that I knew ever so well, but she was a really nice person. I'd got a lot of respect for her. But this incident was just too funny for words. And so I wrote about it, and I did a long spiel, and I was quite pleased about with it, and I read it through. And it was only when I got to the end of reading it through, and I thought, just hang on a minute. If she ever reads this book, which I'm hoping that she would, and she reads this, she is either going to be extremely embarrassed or very upset at being exposed like this. And I thought, no, she was just too nice a person. I couldn't do that to her. So I thought, no, sorry, it's got to go. So it just went shoved into a file at the back of the computer, and there it's.
Right. I mean, this is something that I'm personally interested in. Do you plan your books?
It's not so much when you say plan. Planning insofar as they're all based on or originally based on letters. When I'm writing, the first book was it was just a question of I copied all the letters and I put them into the book. Well, put them all on the computer, and then that was going to be it. And I thought, oh, hang on a minute, there's things in that aren't explained in the letters that I need to give a bit of background to. So then I had to rearrange things, and but that was as far as planning what I'm going to write, it was pretty much pre preordained, if you like, that it was going to be from these letters. Now the second book is different, because it's more of individual instances rather than a flow of our lives on a weekly basis. And so I just wrote these as and when I thought of the different things, or of things that had been mentioned in letters as well. And it was only when I finished doing all that, and then I came to put it together in a book, I realised that I'd actually talked about something in one chapter that only happened two chapters later on. And so then I had to rewrite the one that was later on, or put it in front of the one that was after. But then there was the one that was after didn't work with something else. And I got in such a blinking mess with this second book, honestly. So planning, no. It's not really my best shot, to be honest. So, other than the fact that they are, I do read the letters that give me the background of some of the things I've forgotten about. But yeah, I'm not really a fan.
And just to finish off, I have to compliment you on your book covers. What can you tell us about those?
Oh yeah, well that was just something that I decided must have a picture of Africa on, because it was about life in Africa, and I thought, well, it really should have a picture of us in Africa. And of course, brings us back to that old thing of having to do the blinking drawings myself, which is a real pain in the butt. So I thought, well, I'm going to have to do a drawing of us from behind, because you can't do faces. Or you may, yeah, we won't talk about what you'll see if you look closely at the pictures in the book. But I'm not too good on faces. So I did this backwards shot, which in the event worked better, because it actually looks, when it's on the book face, that we are going into Africa, which of course is the title of the book. If we'd been facing the other way, we'd be coming out of it, and that's a totally different book. You don't want to read that one. It's not the same thing. You want to read into Africa. Okay.
Right, so that's Into Africa and More Into Africa. It's been good talking with you, Anne. Thank you for joining us on eBook Showtime, and I hope to catch up with you again sometime. Goodbye.
Thank you very much indeed. It's been absolutely my pleasure talking to you, Graham. Thank you. Bye.